Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Genesis 32 and 33. Jacob comes home. Now, if you remember, his brother Esau threatened to kill him. And Jacob is still hanging out with Laban, because Laban wanted to say goodbye to his daughters and all that. So this is where it all comes together. These two chapters form a nice series of events. Let's get right into them. Chapter 32. Early in the morning, Laban kissed his sons and daughters and bade them goodbye. Then Laban left on his journey homeward. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God encountered him. When he saw them, Jacob said, "This is God's camp." So he named that place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, and instructed them as follows: "Thus shall you say, to my lord Esau, thus says your brother Jacob, I stayed with Laban and remained until now. I have acquired cattle, asses, sheep, and male and female slaves. And I send this message to my lord in hope of gaining your favor." The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We come to your brother Esau. He himself is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him." And Jacob was greatly frightened. In his anxiety, he divided the people with him into the flocks and herds and camels into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, the other camp may yet escape. Then Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, 'Return to your native land, and I will deal bountifully with you,' I am unworthy of all the kindness that you have so steadfastly shown your servant. With my staff alone I crossed the Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. Else I fear he may come and strike me down, mothers and children alike. Yet you have said, I will deal bountifully with you, and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count." After spending the night there, he selected from what was at hand these presents for his brother Esau: 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 he-asses. These he put in charge of his servants, drove by drove, and he told his servants, "Go on ahead and keep a distance between droves." He instructed the one in front as follows: "When my brother meets you and asks you, 'Whose man are you? Where are you going? And whose animals are these ahead of you?' you shall answer, 'Your servant Jacob's, as they are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and Jacob himself is right behind us.'" He gave similar instructions to the second one and the third, and all the others who followed the droves, namely, "Thus and so shall you say to Esau when you reach him. And you shall add, 'And your servant Jacob himself is right behind us.' For he reasoned, 'If I propitiate him with presents in advance, then face him, perhaps he will show me favor.'" And so the gift went ahead while he remained in camp that night. The same night he arose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children, and he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After thus taking them across the stream, he set across all his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I shall not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with the beings divine and human, and you have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Pray tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took his leave of him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning, "I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping on his hip. This is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat the thigh muscle, that is on the socket of the hip, since Jacob's hip socket was wrenched at the thigh muscle. So, we can see that Jacob, despite all of his success, still remembers Esau's pissed off. And he sends a fairly interesting set of stuff before him. He mentions his manservants and female servants, but he doesn't make a gift out of them. It's an interesting one. Maybe he's thinking he needs everybody there because Esau's coming forth with 400 people and he needs those servants to defend himself. And then you get into the whole Jacob wrestled with a man. See, people say Jacob wrestled with God, but it doesn't specify God there. It says a divine being. There's lots of divine beings, and we know traditionally God has usually appeared during the day. Even when God wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah, his angels arrived during the day, and God began to rain fire during the day. So the Bible very clearly states that they woke up early in the morning, which is quite reasonable when you expect a long journey, and especially in the summer in the Holy Land, it gets pretty darn hot. So Jacob was acting really smart here. Sends everybody across because he can hear something coming and he wants to check it out, which again is weird for somebody on a war footing, but he knows he can always run across and then have the safety of his group. But then he wrestles with this guy. He finds this divine being and they wrestle. But he's told that he cannot ask the name. Now, God is very insistent so far. Call me El Shaddai. Everybody that he runs across, call me El Shaddai, call me El Shaddai. But here he's saying, you must not ask my name. So who is it? It's a mysterious character. We're definitely going to meet him again in Job, in my opinion, where he's referred to as, well, variously, something that roughly counts as the prosecutor who tests men's strength. And he doesn't have a name. He's not Lucifer. He's not anything like that. He's just simply the accuser, someone who comes forth and says, we're going to test this guy. And he plays God's right-hand man because God has a million things to worry about. And the accuser's job is just simply, how good is this person? He went and physically tested him. So Jacob strove with a divine being, but we still see this, I want to call it a superstition, that you have seen a divine being, you haven't gone blind. You have seen a divine being and you lived. There's this idea that a divine being can strike you dead at a moment's notice if you look at him. And yeah, we don't really see this happening. But it's obviously important to the people, to the narrators of the Bible. No matter what, I'm sure we're all looking forward to the climax here. Genesis chapter 33. Looking up, Jacob saw Esau coming, accompanied by 400 men. He divided the children on Leah, Rachel, and the two maids, putting the maids and their children first, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. He himself went on ahead and bowed low to the ground 7 times until he was near his brother. Esau ran to greet him. He embraced him, and falling on his neck, he kissed him. They wept. Looking about, he saw the women and the children. Who, he asked, are these with you? He answered, the children with whom God has favored your servant. Then the maids, with their children, came forward and bowed low. Next, Leah, with her children, came forward and bowed low. And last, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed low. And he asked, what do you mean by all this company which I have met? He answered, to gain my Lord's favor. Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Let what you have remain yours. But Jacob said, no, if you would do me this favor, accept from me this gift, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God, and you have received me favorably. Please accept my present, which has been brought to you, for God has favored me, and I have plenty. And when he urged him, he accepted. And Esau said, let us start on our journey, and I will proceed at your pace. But he said to him, my Lord knows that our children are frail, and that flocks and herds which are nursing are a care to me. If they are driven hard a single day, all the flocks will die. Let my lord go on ahead of his servant, while I travel slowly at the pace of the cattle before me, and at the pace of the children, until I come to my lord in Seir. Then Esau said, Let me assign to you some of the men who are with me. But he said, Oh no, my lord is too kind to me. So Esau started back that day on his way to Seir. But Jacob journeyed on to Succoth, and built for himself a house, and made stall for his cattle, and that is why that place was called Succoth. Jacob arrived safe in the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, having come thus from Padan Aram, and he encamped before the city. That parcel of land where he pitched his tent, he purchased from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 kesitas. He set up an altar there, and he called it El Elohe Yisrael. What you're seeing here, while there is a reconciliation between the brothers, it's a very tense one. Esau keeps saying, Come to my place. And Jacob very skillfully maneuvers his way out of it. He starts on his way to Seir, but then changes his mind and goes to Succoth. Now, Jacob has a lot of people with him, but he still doesn't want to go down into Esau's lands. If you remember, the blessing from Isaac said that one day Esau would throw the neck of Isaac from his neck. So Jacob is being very smart here in establishing friendly relations, but still keeping himself at arm's distance. Sukkoth is the place of booths, which to this day the Jewish people celebrate the holiday of Sukkoth, which is the festival of booths, which is analogous to Thanksgiving, thanks for the harvest, that kind of thing. And this is kind of where it comes from. We're still in Genesis, yet we still have a holiday going on to this very day. So at least a 3,000-year-old holiday. There's older ones, but we go from there. Jacob also, we see again, is purchasing land. These are people from a holy bloodline. Abraham was able to walk into anywhere he wanted and nobody bothered him, despite it belonging to kings. And here Jacob is buying land once again from Hamor, Shechem's father. Now, we don't know what 100 kesitas are, but at the same token, it doesn't sound like it was cheap, especially if there was enough land to build, well, stables and pasture land and all that sort of thing. Obviously, that stuff would not be cheap, especially not thousands of years ago. Whether you want to trace it from the time that this book was being written or from the possible time that these events were taking place, that's a lot of property. That's worth a lot of money. So whatever he bought it for, it's a lot. And it's interesting how they talk about giving away these sheep and asses and stuff like that as though it was nothing, but they're very precise in recording how much money took place, even when we don't know what the individual denominations are. We can only pretend to take a guess at it. Even the translated text in this thing says the meaning of the original Hebrew is uncertain. But it's letting people know that Jacob was not freeloading. Jacob was settling down, building his house. And he bought that house just like we do today. And that way we know that the cave of Machpelah and this land in Hamor have been purchased and are within the inheritance of the Hebrew patriarchs. Lots of things happen in this chapter. Long journey, break away from Laban, start dealing with Esau, and then wind up in Sukkoth. Realistically, it's kind of a road journey with a little bit of adventure. Still not sure what Esau was doing with those 400 men with him. It's quite possible that if he was not pleased, then he would have put his brother to the sword. But as it was, there's at least a show of reconciliation with falling in each other's arms and weeping and all that sort of stuff. So at least the intention was there. Next chapter, boy, am I going to have trigger warnings for that. But we'll leave this here for now. We wish to thank you for joining us for the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Buy the books They're all unique, written by myself. And yeah, for less than the price of a coffee, you can have one of my ebooks. And for less than a cup of coffee for 10 days, you can have one of my physical books. But no matter what, we wish to thank you for joining us today, and we hope you all have a fantastic day.